Hi, welcome to Breakthrough Ideas and Training webinar. I am Cordell Riley, President of Toronto Training. My pleasure to be with you today. It's also my pleasure to welcome Kendall Ware. Kendall is the Director of Training and Development with CC's Pizza. Kendall, welcome to the session.
Thanks, Cordell. How are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. Doing really, really good.
Great.
So, Kendall, I say CC's Pizza, and I certainly know it, and probably most of the audience on this session is going to know who CC's Pizza is, but certainly take this time and share a little bit more about the company and also yourself and what your role is inside of CC's.
Sure, absolutely. I hope everybody knows about CC's Pizza as well. For those of you who don't, we are a 450-plus restaurant chain based out of Dallas, Texas. Predominantly in Texas. We have a large market in Florida, and then the rest are kind of spread across the U.S. and in several different parts. We are a pizza buffet, and so we focus on all you-can-eat pizza, salad, pasta, and desserts. And right now we're going through a very important time with our brand as it's our 30-year anniversary. And we are looking at repositioning the brand and transforming in several different ways. And so it's been very exciting, very fun, very busy, and I just look forward to the end result on that. My background overall has been restaurant and training since I was 16 years old. Started off as the average busboy and been going on since then. I definitely enjoy the restaurant industry within itself, but also the impact that we have on the people from day to day. And I started off with a small chain called Ruby Tequilas, and I moved on from there with a concept called Genghis Grill, where I was able to be a part of a lot of growth and a lot of learning as we went from a 7-unit brand to a 100-unit brand within 5 years. So that was a very good time, and now I'm here at CC's Pizza. And yeah, that's pretty much it from my background. But it's been a mixture of restaurant operations, training, everything in between, from the franchise side, the corporate side, you name it. We've been wearing a lot of hats since then. So
Good deal, good deal. First of all, congratulations on the 30-year anniversary, Kendall. That's huge. So congratulations to you and the group.
absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, Kendall, CC's franchise concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're predominantly franchise at the moment.
Good deal, good deal. So, Kendall, obviously running training inside of a franchise system, just share with the group, and again, our audience, again, is training professionals that are kind of like yourself that are running training inside of their organization. What does your training structure look like inside of CC's?
So right now, we have myself, so I oversee the entire training and development team. Right now we have a team of 5, and our roles right now are field-based for the most part. Then we have a few internal. Right now we are, as I said, transforming the brand, and we have done a lot of rollouts, a lot of changes with quality and overall operations, and so it's required a lot of hands-on training. And we are on the road at least 9 months out of the year, implementing all these new changes, trying to get this brand to the next level it needs to be at. And so things aren't your typical structure right now, as currently, with all the development we have going on with, we're trying to build out our online learning center, we're trying to build out all of our LTO strategies and rollout guides and so on and so forth, is that it's more of an on and off, all hands on deck situation. So right now we will all form up together, create all the content necessary and needed, do our workshops, and then go out in the field and take them live to the franchise community.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty action-packed right now.
Okay, super. So, Kendall, are you going into an area, Charlotte, Dallas, wherever it might be, and you're going in and you're doing instructor-led training? Is that some of what you guys are doing in the field right now when you talk about taking it on the road?
Absolutely. So we've been going a little bit different with our training approach, and we really are focusing on the pre-communication. So leading up to the event, the hands-on event, instructor-led, we want to put out videos on what we're learning, right? So tons of training videos linked to QR codes, or well, that's using apps like the flashcard app where we do a lot of testing and just education prior. And then, of course, we will build things within our online learning center to educate and also help communicate what's coming. And then we have the overall, workshop or rollout where it's hands-on, and we do our best to make sure that we have participation from all of the 450-plus restaurants that we have.
Good deal. So, Kendall, who are you training? So again, you got a different, unique structure. So you got the franchisee that you have out there. You got the people actually in your restaurants actually making the product and greeting the guests. Who are you guys training? Who's your target audience when you're going out?
So it really depends. We do a lot of different style workshops or leadership development classes when we go on the road. And right now, it's really everybody because again, our brand's been around for 30 years, and things have been going well for some, but we're doing so much change that it really does require everybody to be there. The great thing about CC's is we have a long tenure of franchisees, team members, managers, and it's very rare to see that. But you can walk into almost any restaurant and you'll find someone who's been there for 15 to 20 years, and it's pretty unique, and it's great to see that. And so with that kind of tenure, though, you sometimes will have challenges, especially with change. And so we've really had to focus on getting everybody together and focusing on how we can communicate and reach down to the franchisee, but also down to the team members doing the work, the hands-on work. And so right now, it just really depends. Our upcoming rollout, we've asked for every franchisee to attend with one of their managers and one of their hourly team members, because this new rollout that we're doing really impacts all levels of the organization. So it's very important that we have all their attention during.
Good deal, good deal. Ken, I want to go a little deeper on that because one thing you touched on, I have a franchising background, and I remember a lot of times when you would do instructor-led things and you would make training available, you'd roll them out there and you try to get people to come and you show up and you don't have some of the adoption and the attendance that you're looking for. I heard you guys talk about communications and things of that nature. Are you getting the type of attendance and adoption that you're looking for when you're out and about doing the training sessions? And if so, how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I'll say at first it was a little rough. At first, when we really started, implementing this idea of field training and development workshops and things like that, participation was low. It was something new. It's something they're not used to, and you always have those people who are either really excited to hurry up and let's see what's going on. Then you have those who don't really care for it and are going to resist. Then you have everybody else in the middle who just one or the other.
Yeah.
But right now, it's been building up greatly. So we used to go, we track all this, and we used to go from an average of 60% system participation to our last round that we did was actually 100%. We were able to impact and have at least every restaurant represented,
Wow.
or trained in the exact same workshop environment. And so, but what we've done differently is one, we've started moving towards the digital side of things, which we were a little bit behind on. So we've been focusing on that, and that's reached down to several other people in the organization. But we've also started doing recaps. We've been shooting lots of videos and photos and sending them out, and just creating that engagement that we used to just not have. And we've been able to see that very clearly when people are now asking us, hey, when's the next time you guys are coming out? Versus us saying, hey, when can you guys please come out and come watch this? And so it's a little bit of a shift, and it's been over a course of the last 2 years that it's really been changing. But we can definitely tell there's been an impact, and hopefully this next round is even better and a lot more excitement built around it.
Good deal, good deal. So Ken, obviously you have a passion for training, and obviously sound like CC's is doing a lot of things associated with it. Just talk to me in general about how important is training to your organization, how much focus do you guys put on it? Clearly you're doing a lot of things, but is it one of those big rocks as you guys are looking at your company and how you're going to get to that next level? Does training have a key stake as a part of that for you guys?
Absolutely, and I'll say that's something that I'm very grateful for because you don't find that everywhere. I've talked to several people in the industry, and we have this similar conversation, and it's amazing to hear how some organizations feel like it's the bottom of the totem pole or something that is a nice to have, not a need to have. Luckily, with our leadership team and the guys that we have on board and the whole team all around, everybody understands the need, but also the importance of training. And so we have a great communication. There's no silos. There's no walls broken down. It's open communication. Everybody knows that before we can do anything, we have to figure out how we're going to train the system on it. We can have a great idea, and we may know this is going to generate sales, profits, etc. But we can't make it happen without a proper training implementation program. So here it's very, very important, and it's always top of mind. Matter of fact, one of our every year we rank out our top priorities of goals. We try to keep that to a very minimal amount so we can do several things well, not a bunch of things mediocre.
Yeah.
And the exciting part of that was to build out our online learning, but also just overall training programs in general. That was within the top three of our organization's system-wide goals. So that's something we're working very heavily on right now.
Super, super. So, Kendall, to your point, you're obviously in a great organization that really supports it and gives a lot of effort behind it. if you had to give some words of wisdom to other training professionals like yourself that are really looking to talk with their leadership team, continue to highlight the focus of training inside their organization, what would you share with them about the right way to approach leadership just to make sure everybody's on the same page about how important training is inside of an organization?
Sure. I think the first thing is, and I'll just share some prior conversation I've had with others, but some people have felt that, hey, right now my leadership team does not think about training or think that training is important, so it's not my business, or I don't have the authority, or it needs to come from somebody else, and that's not true. I think it can come from anybody, and it's just about setting that example and initiating that change, or being that change agent and starting to show people what the benefits are. But I think, and I've been in these shoes in the past where I had to go in front in a different organization to prove out why training was so important, and it comes down to the business case, right? So put a business case together, prove out what the ROI could be if we did this, this, and that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to figure out how do you always tie training or any kind of development, um, I guess strategies, but how do you tie training into the numbers that make the organization operate,
Yeah.
right? So how can you bring it back to sales? So what could training do in a restaurant or in an organization in general that could generate the top line or bottom line, right? What could you do to impact labor in a positive manner, food costs, those kinds of things? But at the end of the day, we got to figure out how to build traffic, but also manage our cost. And there's so much of that can actually happen through training. And so I think it's just important. What we've started doing as of a year and a half ago is we started tracking, or at least measuring, what's happening with restaurants who are completing a certain amount of, online learning or participating on webinars, attending the workshops, so on and so forth. We're tracking those restaurants and seeing how they stand with guest satisfaction scores, how they stand with their sales, and so on and so forth. And how do they compare to those who we know are the ones who don't necessarily participate as much?
Yeah.
And you can start to see that correlation, and that's how you build a business case to say, hey, here's what I need support on to be able to implement a training program that can do such things. I think another big measure there is the overall turnover. And so, several people leave a job because they're frustrated. They didn't get the proper training. They don't feel like they know what they're supposed to know. And so they leave and they find the next big thing, especially if you're working with millennials. A lot of millennials are used to the technology. They want to get on their phones real quick, do this, do that, swap shifts, learn something, everything. And if you're not there yet, you're going to lose those high caliber of people who may be the best team members, managers, employees overall that you would ever have. But we're going to miss out on that opportunity if we can't deliver to the average standard today.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot that training can do from the front end that prevents the turnover on the back end. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. Not many organizations actually track that to see where they stand. But I think it's an interesting study to find out where your turnover is today, implement a solid training and onboarding program, and of course ongoing development, and then see what happens to your turnover in the following years to come. And I
Yeah.
think people's eyes would open up widely once they started tracking that.
Yeah, no, great points, Kendall, on both sides. I want to go back to the one you talked about on ROI for a second and
Sure.
measuring and looking at those. I know you mentioned sales. I think it was guest count or satisfaction, but certainly looking at the business results that come out. And that's certainly something I've heard a lot of people talk about. Kendall, how often do you do that? Is it a systematic approach that you follow? But I think that one is real key, and I'd love for you to just expound upon that a little bit more, because to your point, I think that helps with the conversations with leadership, that helps to justify the investments in training, that helps to get the adoption up and all of those great things. So how do you go about doing that? Is there a systematic approach that you follow that talks about that inside of your organization?
Yeah, so it is fairly new to us, and so right now a lot of it does require some manual work, um, but it's more of a quarterly thing for us. But again, going back to the business case idea, let's put some numbers on paper. Let's set some realistic goals, and let's see what we can do from a training perspective to help meet some of those. And that's what we're tracking on, and that's how we set up our goals for the organization. But um, there's some things like, so guest satisfaction, for example. If we can look at the data and show that maybe there's an area or an opportunity that we have from a guest satisfaction standpoint, then we'll go build programs or figure out ways to put that more at top of mind and start incorporating that, and then we start tracking, right? And we're not going to say that it's always because of training.
Yeah.
We get that. But if you can see some sort of improvement of that certain target or that certain measure that you wanted to focus in on, if you see some sort of improvement each quarter or just annually overall, then that starts to prove that ROI that, hey, a year ago today, here's where we were. We've implemented these programs and we've had these workshops and we've communicated so on and so forth, and now look where we are. And so I
Yeah.
think if we can start, putting those on paper and actually start documenting them, it really starts to prove that case out.
Yeah, great stuff. Great points. Great point. So, Kendall, you've been on training for quite some time. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen on the training landscape since you've been, in this particular segment?
Everything's digital. Technology is really taking over, and people want it. Even the people who may not have adapted to the smartphones when they came out, or anything else that was digital at first, they're now the ones who are like, man, I really want to get on this. I can't wait for the next, fun and digital thing to come out. And so I think it's just reaching more and more people. And I know some brands were hesitant to go down that route. Um, CC's was one of them. We recently in the last 2 years started going down this path, and you can already see the change in engagement. But that's the biggest thing that I've noticed is just how, with gamification and just all the interactive, learning, I guess, methods out there nowadays, you can just do so much that involves all kinds of styles of learning and blended learning, and you can just really help people, understand the message you're trying to get across because you can communicate 7 times 7 ways nowadays, right? That's something we're really big on here is just how do you communicate 7 times 7 different ways to the same audience. And so we try to follow that method in everything that we do. And with all these new apps and digital technology and yada, 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 all these new things out there, you can find those methods to really reach the proper audience that, you're working towards actually, implementing a program with or a new rollout item, so on and so forth.
Yeah, great points with the technology component. Kendall, I would assume you guys have a lot of the younger generation, a lot of millennials that are working inside of your locations. I assume that's a huge win with that particular audience. Yeah.
Absolutely. More of a win there. We have some of our franchisees who prefer the paper. They want the manuals and books, and again, that's where we were till 2 years ago. But the younger audience, the people that we have working in the restaurants who are making the day-to-day, become real life and actually happen, strive for it. They want more of it.
Yeah.
Those are the phone calls we get or the emails we get of, hey, I really would want to see this, or when is this going to come out? And they want to do more on their phones. Another way we've been able to reach them is, through QR codes. Everything you look at these days, whether it's a cup, an advertisement, a magazine, there's some sort of QR code on there that people can scan on their phones and get the information quick. Most people want the information between 5 and 10 minutes from information to action. How do I, understand it, then go do it? And if you
Yeah.
can't do that in that short time frame, you start to lose that attention. And so we've noticed that QR codes are a huge hit. So we try to make a lot of videos. We try to, link documents to them. We just try to, somehow get that in front of them versus always having to go to, one central point because, again, in the middle of a shift, in our case, or in the moment, sometimes you just need something quick and in front of you. And so that's been another method that we've been, putting in place in the last couple of years.
Good deal. Good deal. Great stuff. So, Kendall, again, our audience, and you got a lot of training professionals like yourself out there that are probably leading and running training inside of your organization. If you just had to give them a couple of tips, if you're trying to enhance your training, trying to get to that next level, what kind of parting comments would you share with this group that can help them get their training to the next level?
I would definitely evaluate, where it stands today, almost like a gap analysis to find out where do I think I am,
Hmm. Yeah.
where do people say we are, and then how do we, enhance all of those together to come up with a better program. But I think going down the technology digital side is the way to go, and just looking for different ways. You can easily go to an app store now and type in, training ideas or training methods, and you get all these fun things that you can do that team members love, right? The people in the restaurants or people who are going through the training, they want that stuff, right? Especially if it can correlate with social media. We started a manager's Facebook page to where every manager in our organization can post things about what's going on in the restaurants, questions, ideas, new pizza names, all kinds of stuff. And what
Yeah.
we've noticed is a lot of people have used that for learning. They'll write out, hey, here's an issue I'm dealing with. How can I get through this, or what would you do? And there's just so much learning going on these social media sites.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I think the whole 7 times 7 ways mentality is just looking at, okay, if we're trying to implement something or train somebody on something, what are all these different ideas or ways that we can actually implement? Because again, everybody learns differently, right? Whether they're visual, whether they need to be hands-on, but if you can reach as many styles as possible, your chances of actually getting your message across clear and concise are a lot greater than just going to one way. Whether that's the old manual paper, black and white text, no photos, or very interactive online photos, videos, etc. It just really depends on the audience and what you're trying to accomplish.
Good deal, good deal. Kendall, great information. Yeah, I could probably keep going on and on with questions and hearing this great stuff, but it's again a lot of great information. I'm sure was very helpful for our audience. So I want to thank you, my friend, for carving some time out of your day and sharing this information. So thank you, Kendall.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cordell.
Well, thanks to our audience for joining us today. Hopefully you found this session very, very helpful. Please continue to come back for other breakthrough ideas and webinar series, and also look for CC's in your hometown and go out and give Kendall and this group a great try. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.